Good morning. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Annie, Reverend Annie Batchelder, and I am an Akashic channel. And I'm here on Facebook at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, and I do live channeling. And that means you bring me your question and put it in the comments, and I channel and answer for you. And it often is incredibly helpful, good direction, loving. The guides are really great at helping us feel not as judgmental and as trapped in our lives as we sometimes make ourselves feel. Um, and and they make they make me feel like I'm valuable, the work I'm doing is right. They help keep me on track. They help me focus on what's really going to do the trick. Pardon me. Chapped lips. Anyway, so I'm here to help you feel full of life and fulfilled by your life, and to see what we can do to enrich that and bring you even deeper into your spiritual growth and your spirit itself, your soul, and your soul's natural, innate connection with the divine. That's the whole point of bringing forth soul consciousness is, you get to be in that energy of your soul that planned this life and chose all the players in your life. And and you get to know what your soul is up to and why it chose this for you as a learning device, or a relationship, or an experience, or some kind of tragedy even. Difficult things have been explained well to me in my that happened to me, when I wasn't able to have my own children. I had 3 tubal pregnancies and a miscarriage, not in that order. Um, I had a tubal pregnancy, a miscarriage, and then 2 more tubal pregnancies is actually the order of events. And so after that, I went, okay, well, let's adopt. So my husband at the time and I had a friend whose nephew, brother-in-law, brother-in-law, very young brother-in-law, had a girlfriend, and she was very pregnant, and she was about 15. And she had been emancipated at the age of 14, which probably should have been a warning flag to me, but this was the last baby on earth for me, so I wasn't gonna skip this opportunity. I was not gonna let anything get in my way for this. So I proceeded we proceeded to do the adoption, and I had this beautiful baby for about 4 weeks, about 28 days. And then the birth mother changed her mind, which is the way the law works. The birth mother has 6 months to change her mind. And the idea behind that law is to keep the genetic family together as much as possible and not break up families. And so I think that's a good law and a good reason. And yet it was very heartbreaking when she showed up at my door and with 2 cops, and to come take her baby back. And I was surprised at the 2 cops. There nothing in my behavior would have suggested they should needed 2 cops to assist her in this, but maybe that's just what you do when you're going to go retrieve your birth baby. And since we knew my husband's best friend was related to the birth baby's father by marriage, we found out later that the birth mother did not want the baby back, and the her mother wanted the baby back. So she was actually doing her mother's wishes. And the thing about the birth mother is that she was raised by her grandmother because her mother could not attend to this, raising her child, or somehow wasn't really involved. And so her grandmother was very involved. And what the Akashic records and the guides, my master's teachers and loved ones, explained to me, the reason for this was that it was allowing the family tradition of the grandmother raising the child rather than the mother, the birth mother, to go on. Somebody had to play their part. Somebody had to be part of that. So when I was a soul, I said, okay, I'll play my part and take the baby as an adoption and then have to give it back. So that helped me understand that I was really just a minor player in the big picture of this family tradition of the grandmother raising the daughter and raising the children. So there you have it. Tricky stuff, painful, yes. But one of the things about looking at it in the Akashic records is that there's a detachment and a very, very much a factuality to it that allows me to understand the circumstances and the whole picture without being like rolling in the mud of the pain and the drama and the upset of that original situation. And it allowed me to just have the experience and continue on. And it was that I was okay. Everything was going to continue on and I was going to make it. And it was part of my, well, I would say a part of how my soul and my guides kind of added a little less arrogance and ego to me. Not so much, look at me, I got it all together. There were some serious upsets in there. 3 tubal pregnancies and miscarriage. Those 4 items themselves were not much fun either. And then the crowning event of having to give the adopted baby back was definitely did the trick. But what it did was allowed me to go, okay, divine, apparently you don't want me to have children. What is it you do want me to do? I'm someone who likes to do. I want to do. I'm very much like, let's be functional here. Let's be a contribution. Let's get the work done. And so that began to really set me on the road to focusing on spiritual growth and spiritual principles and embracing like a regular practice. I might have doubled it up, like listen to a guided meditation while I was in the sun tanning bed. Multitasking. But that got the job done. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your questions written into the comments on Facebook. And I'm going to go get that here on my laptop because much easier to see it here. Okay. So all you have to do is write your question in the comments and I will channel an answer for you. And I love doing this. Channeling is what I do. That's my gift to you in the world. It's the way I can help you. Dana, Januta, very nice. Or do I say the J softly? Januta? Um, I'm so glad to meet you. And Marco's here. Thank you very much, Marco. So, Dana, I'm hoping that you or Diana, I hope you have a question. Is there something that you want to know? Sometimes it takes a couple minutes or a few seconds for your question to show up. But I'm really glad, as you said, you finally made it here for a few minutes. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So, spiritual growth is a unruly path. It can be a wild ride, as my experience that I was just talking about shows. But I got to come out of it pretty whole. I would say, for myself, there's a sense of a little bit of distancing between babies and me, because it's like, they don't want me, or I don't want them, or something like that. I think that's too oversimplified, but oh, I don't always trust it, trust the bonding there. Okay, then J like a Y, Yanuta. Hi, we met at the Santa Fe Expo a few months ago. I'm so glad that you're here on. This is terrific. This is really terrific. Did I do a reading for you, or did we just chat while we were there? Um, I'm going to be at the Santa Fe Expo at the end of June 30th. It's a one-day thing at the Embassy Suites, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I'll be doing readings, and I'll be giving a talk on the Akashic Records and Bringing Forth Soul Consciousness, which is the book I wrote. This book, Bringing Forth Soul Consciousness. Oh, I got to turn my little thing around so that my picture isn't reversed. There we go. Bringing Forth Soul Consciousness, an Akashic Records Guide to Living a Fulfilled Life. This is my book. And so we had a lengthy conversation, did we? Of course, they are challenging for English only speakers. Okay, great. I got it. Well, I'm glad that you made it, that you're here. And I don't, Dana, Hanuta, Yanuta, I'm so glad that you're here. You made it. That's great. So Teresa says, if I can ask on someone else's behalf, I'm wondering if there's a block or if there's any way I can help with my caregiver, Heidi's finding a home for herself and her younger sister and brother. Well, so what I'm getting, let me just bring in the Akashic beings and let them do the work. Greetings and welcome, Teresa. So, as you know, there are things we can do for others and things that we are denied participation. And it is because, were we to step in and do the work that they need to do for themselves, they would be missing out on the experience of doing the work and succeeding at it, or coming up against the blocks that they have to abundance and security and safety. Now, these three people have had a lot of lifetimes where they were nomadic, and they were not really having to apply or fill out paperwork or substantiate their livelihood and all the things that have to be done now. Um, and sort of by the book as we know it here in the United States. And so there's some work on their behalf to straighten out their things and being able to document themselves in a way that allows them to continue forward and be in the flow. They are reluctant to separate, even though there might be a higher chance of two rather than three, or one rather than three people finding a place to live in the best way possible. And San Francisco still has some incredibly high rent rates. So does Marin. I mean, and they probably would find less expensive places to live in Richmond or Vallejo or something like that, but that's a long commute and the expense of driving with bridge tolls. Yikes, the bridge tolls are expensive. So let's, you, Teresa, being such a good energy worker, your job really is to hold these three people in your awareness, like if you were holding them like in an embrace with your energy, and including yourself, surrounding these three people from that place of pure love and appreciation for who these people are and their humanity and their deservingness, and that you know that they are fine human beings and deserving, trustable. You hold that space around them and for them, and you are infusing the energy with this magnetic attraction of a good home, a long-lived good home for these three people where they can be and maintain the connection that these family members need to maintain with one another. Now, the family members maintaining their connection is where they draw security, stability, and adapting. And I get that they are from another culture or another country. And so the adaptation is difficult for cultural reasons, and understanding these rules and regs in a different culture is a big jump. And so staying together makes them feel more secure. And one of the things that you can infuse the energy with is your knowingness that the divine is the security, belief and trust in the divine and her love for us, her desire that we should have stable, safe homes, plenty of food, security, fulfillment on all the levels, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. All those things are the desire and the basis from which the divine assists us. And so you're doing things on the energy level, and that is really important. That makes a lot of difference for yourself and for others. So continuing to do that. Let me check the page and see if I've so Diana, okay, we don't, she says, I don't recall whether we did a formal reading. I'm a woman with 45 years, misdiagnosed mercury poisoning that close to killed me. Yikes, good for you for finding your way out of that forest. That must have been terrible. And I'm afraid I don't remember the conversation at all. And I'm glad that you made it through that experience. Dinah said, when we met, I was also just over 2 years of shock and trauma related, finding my mother collapsed at home and dying, and all of the abuses and harassment from her hired trustee executor. I'm significantly better now, thanks for a bunch of healing bunch of healing modalities, including daily Kundalini yoga practice and the help of Chinese herbs and acupuncture, and spending some time on one of my Jupiter line astrocartography locations in the tropics. As my Jupiter return, and my Jupiter return began last weekend. Wow. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things in there I relate to, and some I don't really. I've never heard of a Jupiter return. I've heard of Saturn return, but it makes sense that there would be another planet return. So I can imagine that. Teresa says, thank you. I have better clarity. You confirmed my suspicion by suspicion. Well, yeah, there's, the most effective work we do in the world is on the energy level. And, the guides tell me that over and over again. And when I'm worried about selling the book or, getting more clients to read for, which I always seem to be, it's like, they say, call your clients to you on the energy planes. That's where you're going to really get through to them and be useful. So I'm calling to you all. Hope you're hearing it. Maybe Diana has heard me on the energy planes as well, since we could connected at the last San Rafael Expo. I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad for all these people having breakthroughs. Look at what it takes to have the breakthrough. And this is how the Akashic beings of light explained to me that the way it works, the way that having a soul sets us up to come back, to return to the lap of the divine and return to connection with our soul and the inevitable distinction that our soul has brought to our being. And the thought and the reasoning behind the way our souls have planned our lives and to work out and planned certain experiences. Diana, maybe you feel like you're a stronger person. That you have gone through so much and you've had to stand up for yourself in many, many ways, and Teresa, I know that you've had to do. So let's see. Okay. I'm just reading what's on the page on Facebook. Teresa, suspicion that is not my place to intervene on a level other than spirit or energy. And, and loving support or hearing what their process is like, just being a great listener and holding them in heart energy. If you activate your spiritual heart, you can really like hold them in that space. Chapter 11 in my book, Bringing Forth Soul Consciousness, is all about your spiritual heart. In fact, it's titled Your Spiritual Heart. And that spiritual heart is referenced in many occasions in the book. And in my experience working with the spiritual heart, the best way which was demonstrated to me by my guides was when I was caring for my father and his wife when they were in their last turned out months of their lives. And and my father had a UTI that we weren't really aware of. He had a urinary tract infection and it made him kind of kooky. And my father was a math teacher, so he was a logic man, and 2 + 2 is equals 4, and it always will and always does, and you can count on that. And so when he started having visions of very unkind aliens, disciplining and executing people from the Richmond Bridge. He could see the Richmond Bridge from his house. Um, and hearing voices and them telling him stories. Some of it was amazing. They took him into, how the Big Bang happened and why. And I said, well, tell me. And he says, I don't have the words. And I understand that from channeling. It's like that. How do you unpack the picture with the sensations and the connections that I'm being given? And how do I describe that to another person in with the limitation of our words and language and like that. And anyway, so, but he got a little strange, like, he'd say, those birds outside the window, and because he lived right on the water on Corte Madera, right on the edge of the bay. And he said, they're mechanical, they're watching us. And I was thinking, this is not my dad talking. This is not the way he talks. He says, those people down the street, they filled in their basement and they made it that, or not their basement, but they filled in the lowered living room. It was this hunken living room, which was the fashion of the day at the time of the building of that house. And they made it, he said, they made it into like a prison or a jail cell, and they hold people in there. Like, that's not my dad. My dad is very humane. He's very thoughtful. He's very kind. He's very polite. He's, he, it pains him to pain others. It pained him to cause pain in others. And so he didn't. And so for him to be saying these things was very strange. So I felt a little like on edge because I felt like he was going to turn on me. And in the middle of listening to some of these stories about how his odd experiences, and mostly it was rather fear laden, my guide said, activate your spiritual heart. And so right away, it softened me. So I wasn't trying to defend myself from my father's change of mood, change of mentality. I I was just with this experience and having the experience. So I didn't have to judge him. I didn't have to protect myself. I didn't have to wall anything off. I could still be in my spiritual heart and love him exactly the way he was. And then shortly after that, we discovered that it was a UTI, and so we could take care of that. Excuse me. Let's see, Dinah, any offerings of wisdom for my journey to Lithuania to find a paying tenant for my apartment, which has someone in there who doesn't pay rent. My mother put her in during the years when I was too poisoned to manage the tenant search and generously created a non-rent deal. Oh, baby, that's not a fun problem. So, um, so you need to know what your rights are as a landlord, and you need to know what the tenant's rights are in that country, in Lithuania. You're going to have to do some good research, and you may have to hire an attorney or at least find a friend who has some experience with tenant law in Lithuania. My father had apartments. And so I'm the daughter of a landlord, so I understand these problems pretty deeply. And, in the rare periods of time when he had to actually evict somebody, it was a really, it was very important. So, Diana, there may not be a tenancy contract that you know of. However, you are the owner of the property, right? So as the owner, you have rights, and they should supersede the rights of somebody who is trying to live there rent free. And you may be able to make the claim that your mother had some dementia, and she was trying to do what was best for you, and you were ill and in another country, and were not able to care for these business pieces. And so there may be some extenuating circumstances that could be taken into account. Now, Dan, this is going to require you having boundaries. And clearly, when you were ill, having boundaries was the last thing from your mind. I understand that completely. And but now that you are no longer ill, you have to develop the kind of boundaries that you need to continue living appropriately to your soul's plan in this life. And you have to also be in deep touch with the divine. You've got to let the divine help you. You've got to let the divine show you the loving way to change this circumstance. And you're going to have to go there. You're going to have to go there. You can't do this long distance. I don't believe. You may be able to start the situation, but I don't think you can finish it. And there's the emotion of you being invaded and disregarded. And so we have to set that aside, and that goes with the poisoning that you got. You felt invaded and disregarded and disempowered and completely out of alignment with yourself. Now, you have to let that go. You got to let that go. It's not personal. They're not doing anything personal to you. They're not sitting around going, how can we get away with this forever? They're probably just trying to live and thrive, much like Teresa's caregiver and her relatives. They're just trying to find a way to exist and be there and live the way they need to live. Fortunately, the woman who's been living there and have been on good terms with her. That's great. So from the space of your spiritual heart, your spiritual heart is the biggest heart energy available. There's your physical heart, there's your heart chakra, and then there's your spiritual heart. And it's far more encompassing than anything else. And one of the reasons that you are having this occasion with this woman is that you're on good terms, but you're being taken advantage of. And that's not necessarily good terms. And you're trying to change that. And and you can present it to her. First, you do the energy work like we've been talking today, is you connect heart to heart with her and acknowledge that you've been out of integrity by not being able to deal with this situation directly and appropriately, but now you are well and you're having to deal with it now. And she needs to be in integrity because she was not given license to live there free. Or your mother did not have the true authority to give her license to live there into perpetuity for free. And so this can be remedied by her beginning to pay you rent. And, like, you're just going to have to start from where you are and have it keep coming. And you have to bring her an agreement that she signs, a legal, valid rental agreement in Lithuania. And when things are on paper, everybody knows what the deal is. So she has a certain amount of rent that's due. There's got to be a deposit that's got to be collected, because at least here in the United States, we always have to put in a deposit, and that's to cover any damage that she has done to the building, inside or out. And it determines who's paying the water, the garbage, the utilities, all of that. That's what the agreement is for. And so that nobody's wondering, nobody's making little assumptions and thinking the rest of the world is operating on their assumptions, because pretty much the rest of the world is not operating on my assumptions or your assumptions. Um, uh, All right. Well, I'm seeing that you're spelling out a lot of the drama, and I think that to go on further for you, you need to schedule a reading with me. So I need to let somebody else ask some questions too, as much as I like talking to you and working with you. But I think we got a good start on some of the solutions for what has to be done. Um, and there's a lot of good issues, boundaries, having things on paper so everybody knows what the deal is, and we can always go back and refer to the paper. This is what we're agreeing to. And you know I mean, my father, the math teacher, whenever I borrowed money from him, and there was many cars that I got because he financed them. And God bless him, it was such a help. Uh, he always had a contract. This is the payments they're doing this time, a date on the month, and here's the payment schedule. And if you pay, these 5 payments, you will have gotten the principal down to such and such. And he charged me interest, because that's what happens in the world. When you borrow money, you have to pay interest. And he told me that the interest rate was set by the amount of interest he would not be collecting in the investment he had to take that money out of in order to buy me a car. And, it just seemed reasonable. It seemed great. And it taught me the value of money, how to be with money, it- that if I failed to make my payments, then there was a track record. And that probably would not have allowed me to get more loans in the future. Although I did very well with the payments, and always kept my word, because that's the way I was brought up. That's what he taught me. That's what my mother did. You just pay your debts. And so uh, it may be, in Dana, that you have to write out your resentments, both about being ill and unable to care for your affairs, and about your mother's um, choices on your behalf, and about the tenant that's living in them. Write down all the things that upset you and make you angry about this, because the last thing you want to do is be sitting on an explosive container with your resentments in it and try to have a loving conversation with this woman. It will backfire, because the truth will out. um, all right. Uh-huh. Um, Great. Let's see. I'm just checking back in here. Oh, all right. Stephanie, any advice for me to focus on this week? I've been making a lot of progress lately, working with my inner child more, question mark, connecting with other aspects of myself. Well, your dragons are showing up, and they are a great part of working with your inner child. And your inner children are really opportunities to help these little parts of you grow up into the complete adult that you actually are, or to acknowledge the complete adult that you actually are, and to realize how well you embrace growth, change, your willingness, and you get the messages that when it's time to change, it's time to change. You don't shirk from these messages. And interestingly enough, the dragons will help you get the messages as well as interpret them in effective ways. And by that I mean ways that aren't destructive to you or aren't insulting to you, ways that allow you to be who you are and all of a piece at one with this, with your growth. And, this is the whole point of why you're alive. I mean, it seems like the ground of your being is based on how much can I grow in one lifetime? And there's the other part, how much fun can I have doing so? And I think that's the thing. The guides have been really pointing that out to me as well. Is that it's got to be fun because otherwise I don't want to play. I'm like, man, I don't think so. That doesn't sound like it's that much fun. So, um, okay. Um, Diana, you're assuming that she cared for the apartment. You don't know that. So just notice that you're making certain assumptions, and it is quite possibly true that this tenant, so-called tenant, is caring for the apartment. But anyway, um, so let me see if there's anything else for Stephanie. No, the guides are saying it's time to close the records. That's it for the day. I really appreciate working with everybody very much. All right. We close the records with this prayer. Thanking the great creatress for love, protection, and healing received this day. Thanking the Akashic beings of light for wisdom and direction, and thanking the masters, teachers, and loved ones for guidance. I got those two reversed, but it's all acknowledged. The divine portal and the Akashic records are now closed. Amen, amen, amen. Very good, folks. Very good. Oh, that's interesting. Stephanie's saying, my inner little girl jumped up on the main dragon and took off after one healing with her. It was an amazing feeling. Thanks for your insights. All right. Oh, that's good. Sounds like you've got things in hand, Diana. I'm really glad you've got things in such good shape. So you don't feel desperate and you don't feel at odds with the world. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right, ladies and gents, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it so much. Goodbye now. Thank you, folks. Really appreciate your love and your patience and keeping up with this?